Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Hayley Hart about the pre-park opening portrait sessions that Disney couples can book inside Magic Kingdom, EPCOT, Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and at Disneyland and at California Adventure. On today's show, Hayley is going to share her experience doing portraits on both coasts, so at Walt Disney World and at Disneyland. And we're going to go through all of the pricing for both coasts and the policies, how it works, who's eligible, everything you need to know if you're interested in having one of these pre-park opening portrait sessions. And I should let you know that this is going to be 2024 pricing. So if you are listening to this episode and it's 2025 or beyond, you can find the latest pricing in Chapter 8 of the Fairy Tale Weddings Guide. So that will have all of the current pricing if it has changed at that time. So welcome, Hayley.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being on the show today. Today, we are going to talk all about these portrait sessions, and I can't wait for you to share your experience having done them on both coasts. And it'll be interesting, I think, to hear about the differences between the two. So we'll start with Walt Disney World. Probably that's where most people do these. So at Walt Disney World, only couples who have had official Disney's fairy tale weddings at any time may book these pre-park opening portrait sessions. So that means if you got married at Shades of Green or at Paddlefish or someplace on Disney property, but you didn't have an official Disney's fairy tale wedding, at this time, you don't qualify. Now, this requirement has changed a lot over the years, so it's always worth checking just to see if they've changed it. For a while, you could do these portrait sessions in EPCOT and Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom, no matter where you'd had your wedding, and only Magic Kingdom was reserved for Disney couples. But right now, they're saying that you have to have had a Disney wedding to do these portrait sessions in any of the parks. But the good thing is, it doesn't matter when you had your Disney wedding. So if you got married 15 years ago, you can still book one of these portrait sessions. The only thing that changes is the booking window, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you have at any time had a Disney wedding at Disneyland or at Walt Disney World, you are qualified to book one of these portrait sessions. You don't have to have had it just within the last year or whatever. Now, these portrait sessions are only available for the couple. Children are not allowed. So if you are going to have your kids with you on your trip, you'll need to find childcare, which Disney recommends Kids Night Out, which is a local bonded company that does in-room babysitting, or perhaps somebody else in your party can look after the kids. But there are no exceptions to that rule. Only the two people of the couple can come on the portrait session trip into the park. Now, the pricing is going to depend on whether or not you had Disney Fine Art Photography shoot your ceremony. So that means that if you had just a ceremony-only event, or if you had a ceremony and then a reception, but somebody else shot the reception, as long as Disney Fine Art Photography was the photographer for your ceremony, you qualify for these discounts. So here are the prices. Magic Kingdom right now is $4,000, but it's $3,500 if Disney shot the ceremony. EPCOT or Animal Kingdom or Hollywood Studios is $3,000, and that's $2,700 if Disney shot your ceremony. If you want to do Magic Kingdom plus one other park, that's $5,000 or $4,500 if Disney shot your ceremony. And then there are all these other different combinations. You want to do just EPCOT and just Hollywood Studios. You want to do Magic Kingdom and 2 parks. You want to do all the parks. All of that pricing is in Chapter 8 of the Fairy Tale Weddings Guide. And what you get for that price is an hour-long portrait session. You get a 20-print 6x9-inch album, and you are able to download all the high-res images from a website. The cost only counts toward your wedding event minimum expenditure if the session is either held on the day of your wedding or if Disney is shooting your wedding too. So if you're getting married and you are booking this portrait session and you're going to do it while you're there on your honeymoon, the only way that this would count toward your event minimum expenditure if Disney is not your photographer for your wedding would be if you had the portrait session the day of the wedding, because then it's a wedding day expenditure and it can go on your BEO and you can pay for it with your BEO, and that's how Disney does it. But if you are coming back a few weeks later or a year later, the cost of this session would not count toward your wedding unless Disney Fine Art Photography had shot your wedding. And if that were the case, you would have paid for the portrait session already, and you would have only 12 months in which to do the portrait session. So you can book this portrait session as soon as you sign your Disney's Fairy Tale Weddings contract. And then this 12-month courtesy booking window lasts until 12 months from your wedding or vow renewal day. So that means that you can book up to 12 months ahead, as long as it's within 12 months of your wedding day. After that, you can still book it. You're not out of luck. The problem is that you will only be able to book it within 4 months of the date that you want. And of course, if you prepaid on your BEO, you would have to have the shoot within 12 months because the money's already out there and they can't hang on to it for you indefinitely. Now, payment is required in full when you book if you don't have it put on your BEO, and you must cancel 6 months out for a full refund. Now, the session lasts 1 hour and it takes place before Magic Kingdom opens. So a lot of times you'll hear people say, how did you get those nighttime photos at Magic Kingdom? It's actually super early morning photos, and whether or not you are going to have a sunrise in your photos depends on the time of year. So you can go to a website like timeanddate.com and look up the day that you're going to have your portrait session, and it'll tell you what time the sun rises, so you'll know if your photos will be all in the dark or partially in the dark or all in the sunshine. The pickup time ranges from about 5:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. because it depends on the park schedule. So they will tell you what time your photo shoot is based on when the park is opening, and then they'll tell you what time they're going to come pick you up. So Disney's Fine Art Photography will pick you up at your Disney resort, or if you're staying off property, they will meet you at the wedding pavilion. There's a free parking lot there, so you can park there, and they will pick you up and drive you backstage in the park. So availability depends on the time of year and day of the week. Most of December is blacked out, and this is because of all the Christmas activities and putting up the decorations and taking down the decorations, but usually for the rest of the year, you shouldn't have any trouble booking one of these. You need to book each park shoot on a separate day, though. So in the past, you were able to do EPCOT plus another park on the same day because World Showcase opened so much later. But now that they have all the fun stuff in World Showcase, they're opening it at the same time as the rest of the park. And so every single park has to be done on a different day. So if you do decide you want to do all 4 parks, guess what? You're going to be doing 4 days of photo shoots. Now, normally Disney has a 4 to 6 week turnaround on the photos, but sometimes it can be longer if they're really busy. So expect at least 4 to 6 weeks before you get your photos. You can also request a specific Disney Fine Art photographer for these shoots, but there's no guarantee that you will get them. So my recommendation is to search for the different names of the Disney Fine Art photographers on DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, because that way you'll be able to see entire weddings and entire photo shoots, not just 1 or 2 select images that photographer has done. They also have on Disney Fine Art Photography's Pinterest board, which is linked from the Disney's Fairy Tale Weddings Pinterest board. They have specific boards for each photographer, but those aren't always up to date, and they only have like greatest hits collections. So if there's a way for you to see an entire wedding or an entire photo shoot shot by that person, then it can help you decide who you want to request. But again, there's no guarantee that you'll get that person. So find as many people as you can to request, and hopefully you will get one of them. And then when you're ready to book, you just call 407-934-4004. Or if you are working with your wedding planner, you can have them add it to your BEO that way.
I have the times that we were picked up, which of course was during March. So EPCOT, we were picked up at 6:30 a.m. for the shoot from 7 to 8. And then Magic Kingdom was a pickup time of 6 a.m. for the shoot time to be from 6:30 to 7:30.
That's interesting. And then what time in March was it, before or after daylight savings? And did you get any daylight in your photos?
I don't recall if it was before or after daylight savings. I know it was the 16th and 17th. We did get daylight in our pictures, though. I think it's pretty evenly spread. We definitely got the sunrise, I want to say 15, 20 minutes in.
Got it. If you go to DisneyWeddingPodcast.com and check out the post for this episode, you'll be able to see all of Hayley's photos. So you can see what it looked like on March 16th. Okay, so there are a few things to know about specific parks when you're booking these Walt Disney World portrait sessions. So for Magic Kingdom, they have specific routes that you have to pick because they will stack couples. So sometimes they'll have up to 3 couples total taking their photos inside the park before the park opens on the same day. So they have different routes, and that way those people don't interact. But all of the routes start at the castle. So you don't have to worry that if you wanted Route 2 and you got Route 3, you're not going to get any castle pictures. Everybody gets castle pictures. So Route 1, it includes the Prince Charming Regal Carousel and the Mad Tea Party and the Wishing Well, in addition to the castle. Route 2 has Enchanted Tales with Belle, Be Our Guest Restaurant, Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid, and the castle. And Route 3 has Rapunzel Tower, or the Rapunzel Bathrooms, as some people call it, Haunted Mansion, and Pirates of the Caribbean, in addition to the castle. Sometimes people ask, well, could I go to Haunted Mansion, but then also go to Mad Tea Party? And Disney won't mix and match places on these routes because they're so far apart. There wouldn't be enough time. So sometimes people want something a little bit unusual. I had a couple on the show recently who did Tomorrowland, but they had to give up another spot on the route they picked, and they had to pick a route that was close to Tomorrowland in order to get that. So it's always worth asking if you want something, but it's really hard to mix and match just because of that distance. And then for Epcot, Animal Kingdom, and Hollywood Studios, there are no routes, but it's all about distance. So in Epcot, they say, pick 3 countries that you want to shoot in. But if you picked, I don't know, Norway and then France, you're probably not going to have time for a third one unless you stop in it really quickly as you're hoofing it all the way around World Showcase. So it helps if you pick like Canada, UK, and France so that they're all next to each other. Same at Animal Kingdom. You wouldn't be able to do Expedition Everest and Pandora because they're across the park from each other. So they like to keep you in one section of the park or the other. And then at Hollywood Studios, you can do a portrait session inside Galaxy's Edge, but bridal attire is prohibited. And there's a list in the Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, but basically it's like wedding gowns, veils, tuxedos, anything that looks like a wedding because of the storyline of Star Wars. You're not allowed to wear it in Galaxy's Edge, but I've seen a lot of portrait sessions where people do really cute Disney bounding outfits, so that's a great alternative.
With Epcot, they told us we could select 3 countries, but to really prioritize 2 because the third isn't always a guarantee. And so when the morning of came, we had Michael View, which was our top pick, and we're so happy that we had him. We kind of told him what our picks were, and that it was France, Canada, and Germany. And he was just kind of like, okay, we'll definitely get France and Canada done. I'm not sure about Germany. And he was just like, are you okay with like maybe 1 or 2 pictures there, which we were really okay with. And he was awesome. He made it happen. And we even had like time to spare, and we got that big old Epcot golf ball in the background of a few pictures afterwards too, which was awesome.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then which route did you pick at Magic Kingdom?
We had Route 2. We actually got really lucky. We started off on Main Street. Michael was like, this is awesome. This is actually like a rarity to be able to get pictures on Main Street in the morning just because, everyone's busy at work, kind of getting it ready for the day. And so there was just a clear opening where no one was really kind of working on Main Street when we arrived. And so we took quite a few pictures on Main Street, which was awesome. And then we went to the castle. And then we kind of worked our way. We had a request of taking pictures outside Gaston's on the way to the Be Our Guest kind of restaurant gate front area. And he was really awesome. We really wanted those like funny, goofy shots in front of Gaston's, and he was awesome. He was hyping us both up, and he just kept being like, oh, you gotta work it for each other. And it was just awesome. The pictures he caught of us doing that, it was amazing. We love those pictures so much, and it was everything we both envisioned. And then Josh actually did an outfit change prior to that. For our ceremony, he wore a kilt. That was kind of one of our compromises of doing a Disney wedding, was that he got to wear a kilt. And so we just kind of went with it. So he actually did that outfit change for Gaston's and then changed back into his suit for the rest of the photo shoot, which was kind of funny, I think. You never really hear of the husband doing the outfit change. And so while he was doing that, Michael kind of did like a solo photo shoot with me, just kind of with like the Little Mermaid, the outside area of the attraction in the background with the sunrise coming up. And those are just, they're gorgeous pictures. And then we, of course, went to the inside of the Little Mermaid attraction. And then, I'm trying to think, I think we just kind of looped back around to the castle again. And we got some really awesome sunrise pictures with the castle too.
That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned you got Michael Vu. Do you remember who else you requested?
We had a long list because I know that, of course, like you said, it's not a guarantee. So I gave our planner a very long list, but kind of working down preference. And so I made it clear. I was like, look, if we can't get this person, then this is the person we want to try next, and so forth. But we loved everyone who was on the list. We just, we had to sort out our preference. So Michael was definitely the first. Jaime was the second one. And then I'm trying to think of who the third one was. But I know the two of them were definitely top two. Michael being strong number one, though. I remember begging our planner to anything that we can do to get him, we will do. So luckily we got him.
That's fantastic. And do you remember how long it took to get your photos back?
It was impressively fast. Everyone at the time was saying, expect to wait 4 to 6 months potentially. And I think we got ours back I want to say 3 weeks, I think. It was impressively fast, yeah.
That's wonderful. Great. So now we are going to talk about the Disneyland portrait sessions. Disneyland's photo shoots are a little bit different than the ones at Walt Disney World. For one thing, only couples who have had a Disney's Fairy Tale wedding in the last 6 months may book. So again, it's okay if your wedding was at Walt Disney World, but instead of having this, anytime idea that they have at Walt Disney World, at Disneyland, you have to have had your wedding in the last 6 months in order to book one of these. Like at Walt Disney World, the portrait session is only available for 2 people. They won't let you bring children along, so you'll need to arrange for childcare. The pricing is a bit different because you pay based on the location that you want for your photos, and it doesn't include a photographer. But some people actually like that because that means you can pick your own photographer and be guaranteed to get somebody who does the style of photography that you like. So you're looking at between $4,000 and $6,500 for the different locations, and that would be like Haunted Mansion or Cars Land or the castle. I would say most of the shoots that I see are Main Street and the castle. But if you did want to do Haunted Mansion or you wanted to be someplace else in the park, Tomorrowland or whatever, there are different prices for each of those spots. So you'd have to find out from the person you're working with at Disneyland what the price is for the spot that you're interested in. Also, they will only let you do exteriors, the one exception being the lobby of the Haunted Mansion. So for a while there, they were letting you pay extra to do photos inside the lobby of some of the rides in Fantasyland, but now it's all exteriors only. If you are having a wedding at Disneyland, the cost of the shoot will count toward the event minimum expenditure, but it will not if your wedding is at Walt Disney World. And as I mentioned, because you are selecting locations, you can only pick up to 2 locations per park. So again, logistically, they need to have time to get you from one place to the other. So if you do want to do Haunted Mansion and then also Main Street, that's great, but you wouldn't have time to add in Toontown or whatever. As with Walt Disney World, at Disneyland, if you want to do both parks, you have to book each park shoot on a separate day. So California Adventure would be one day and Disneyland would be another day. Now, what's interesting is park approval is required and it can take several weeks to get approval for the shoot. So at Walt Disney World, you just call up and you book it, but at Disneyland, they need to get approval for you. And again, at Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland, no bridal attire is allowed. So there you would have to do Disney bounding or street clothes, but you wouldn't be able to wear a wedding gown or a tuxedo or anything like that. And as I mentioned, Disney has a list of approved photo vendors. Their prices start at around $1,000, so that's on top of what you're paying for your 2 photo locations. But again, at least you get to choose your photographer instead of perhaps not getting the person who you want. The shoot lasts 1 hour, and just like in Florida, it takes place before the park opens. At Disneyland, it will end by 7 a.m. You will get picked up in the lobby of your Disneyland Resort hotel and driven into the park. So if you're staying off property, you would just meet them at one of the hotel lobbies. And to request a photo shoot, you would submit an inquiry via the Contact Us feature on the Disney Fairy Tale Weddings website. So it's www.disneyweddings.com/contact-us, and then you select wedding as the event type and Disneyland Resort as the desired location. And then in the anything else section, you would put that you're interested in a photo shoot and someone will get back to you to book it. Now, of course, if you're having a wedding at Disneyland, you can book it through your planner. But if, like Hayley, you had your wedding at Walt Disney World and you want to do this, that's how you would contact them. So, Hayley, I would love to know how you guys decided that you wanted to do portrait sessions on both coasts.
Just looking at inspiration pictures for Magic Kingdom, I of course saw the dream lights on the castle, and I was just blown away by those and those images with the dress and the veil, and my veil had the sparkles on it, and I was just like, I just really want that. And so, of course, Disney World has since gotten rid of the dream lights, which is very sad, but Disneyland still has them. And so I was able to somehow convince Josh, my husband, to do another shoot on Disneyland. And we were able to go again for Christmas and get the dream lights in, and it was awesome. It was definitely different from Magic Kingdom, just kind of like the logistics of everything. I definitely preferred Magic Kingdom's. It felt very much like Magic Kingdom was just kind of like our playground. It was so much fun. I think Michael had a really big contribution to that feeling too, though. Like I said, he was such a hype man. And it genuinely felt like Magic Kingdom was just like our little playground for like an hour, which was just awesome. You really can't put a price to that feeling. Whereas Disneyland was just very much more, I guess it kind of had like a strict business approach to it, really. We kind of went in with our photographer who we had to find ourselves. It's not assigned with Disneyland. So, of course, that photographer is an additional cost on top of the photo shoot, whereas with Disney World, you have the photographer included into that price, which we really liked. But once we got to Disneyland at the castle, we were met by a team of about like 10 people, just making sure that I guess we were just like behaving appropriately in a sense. And of course, just not like, all of those, bad things that people can do, such as destroying property or anything like that. And just really trying to make sure that we don't take any crazy backstage pictures or videos or anything. But it felt much more restricted in a sense. And I feel like in the pictures, I can kind of tell that I felt much more free and relaxed in Magic Kingdom than I did in Disneyland. Just because I was much more aware of other people there, it felt much more rushed too because of that. But it was definitely still a lot of fun. They were just two very different experiences.
Interesting. Okay. What was the booking process like for you for the Disneyland portrait session?
It was really smooth, actually. Once we kind of first found out that that was something we wanted to do, that was, of course, right around when our wedding was, which, March to December timeframe, that's 9 months. So we were 3 months outside of the booking timeline. And we, of course, still had to kind of make a request, though. And we were just like, hey, we really want to do this, but we really want to get, the Christmas decorations, the dream lights in. That's really the main only reason we want to do this. And so we got really lucky and an exception was made. And they were just like, since this is the only reason you want to do it, and of course, you can't have the dream lights at Disney World, we're willing to make this exception for you. Just kind of reach out to us at that 6-month mark and we'll go ahead and get everything scheduled. And it was really great communication, honestly. If I didn't hear back from the person day of, it was usually within 48 hours, I want to say. Yeah, it was a really smooth process.
That's very cool. Did they make you pay for the session up front or did you pay on the day of the shoot?
So we did two payments. We kind of paid a deposit, which was half of the cost, which at the time was 6,000 for the castle shoot. So we paid 3,000 at first, and then we paid another 3,000 about, I want to say like 4 to 5 weeks before the shoot.
Interesting. Okay. How many photographers were on the list of approved photographers that they gave you?
I don't have the list in front of me, but I recall feeling it was kind of a short list. We weren't crazy impressed with the list. Of course, White Rabbit was on there, which a significant amount of Disneyland couples have used, and they're great. Their work is amazing. We actually initially tried to see if Michael could kind of come over and do our Disneyland shoots for us, which we kind of did speak to him about, and he was all up for it. He even tried getting, his manager to kind of get the approval going. But it was kind of one of those logistics thing and legalities, I guess, where he was a Disney World cast member and photography for Disneyland shoots was outside photography, and so they couldn't have the two mixing, unfortunately. Otherwise, we totally would have gone with Michael. I think I recall there being maybe 5 or 6 photographers at the time, and we did reach out to a few. But with the castle shoot already being 6,000, we weren't trying to go too crazy. And so the cheapest option we went with, as well as, the quality that we wanted to go with, was White Rabbit. Now with White Rabbit though, you can of course go with Jenna, the owner of White Rabbit. She would be 1,500, or you can get another photographer with White Rabbit who is 1,000. So we went with a different photographer at the time. We weren't able to select the photographer. We were just kind of assigned someone. We had Erin, and she was amazing. And we also had the assistant Bree as well, who was there.
That's great information. Do you remember what all you got with the shoot? Did you get just digital images? Was there an album or prints?
Yeah, we just got digital images. We have an online gallery that we still have access to, which is great. Because, I know with Disney World, that gallery does expire, and so you have to pay for it if you want access to it again online for those digital images. Whereas with White Rabbit, there isn't an expiry date to that for us to need to pay more to extend, luckily. But yeah, it's just a digital gallery.
Got it. Do you remember what day of the week and time of day your photo shoot was?
Yes, it was January 2nd, 2024. And we were picked up from the Disneyland Hotel at 5 a.m. Well, we were picked up at 5 a.m. However, the pickup car ended up breaking down at pickup. So we had to wait for another vehicle to come, which was fine. But that kind of pushed the shoot a little running late. But it all worked out. We were just kind of rushing a little bit. And then we were supposed to start around 5:30. And I think we started closer to about, I want to say 6. So we were picked up closer to 5:45, I think, and then we started at 6, and we were supposed to start at 5:30. So it went from about 6 to 7.
Got it. Okay. What photo spots did you pick in Disneyland?
Unfortunately, if you choose just the castle in Disneyland, you can only do the castle, which is totally fine. That's exactly what we wanted. We wanted the dream lights and everything. And they're able to work out a bunch of different kind of angles and shots and everything around the castle. And you do have that big carousel back there too. Unfortunately, Disneyland are just much more strict with their routes and everything compared to Disney World. And so even though the carousel was right there, we weren't allowed to go take pictures with it. However, the workaround that is you can kind of take pictures of the back of the castle with the carousel in the background, which we did get quite a few pictures of that.
Interesting. Okay, so it sounds like you maybe preferred your Walt Disney World photo shoot over your Disneyland photo shoot.
Yes. Yeah, I would definitely say that. I don't think we have any regrets doing it. It was definitely still a fun experience. But I think kind of having the information that we have now and having gone through the experience, I don't think we would do it again. I think we would just be content kind of with Disney World. But it's, again, we definitely still got the experience, which was a lot of fun. And we definitely still have quite a few pictures that we still really enjoy too.
That's wonderful. Do you have any other tips for couples who might be interested in doing a bridal portrait session on either coast or perhaps at both?
I think another kind of roadblock I ran into, I had some issues with the makeup artist I had booked. I ended up kind of being without a makeup artist like the evening before the shoot. And I didn't travel with makeup. I'm going to the parks all day. I'm like, oh, I don't need makeup on. I don't even need it. So I learnt my lesson the hard way to always pack makeup, even if you think you won't need it. That's my biggest tip from this to anyone is just always take makeup. And so by the time I was kind of trying to figure everything out, the only place to really do my makeup was someone at Sephora, which isn't super ideal, but we made it work. And then I just kind of did my hair myself. I'm not crazy into doing my own hair or anything. I blow dry it straight and I call it a day. So me trying to curl it and everything, I just ended up pulling an all-nighter essentially. So I was like, well, if I mess it up, I might as well leave time to wash it to try again. And luckily I didn't have to do that. And I got an hour's sleep, I think, with my makeup on and my hair done, but flopped over the pillow so it didn't mess up and stuff. So I think probably just making sure that you really do your research into kind of makeup artists and salons. I actually found out kind of day of, which I'm really kicking myself over and not realizing prior to it and booking with them. The Grand Californian, they actually have a full-on salon basically, and they even have wedding packages for full-on hair and makeup at a fairly reasonable price too, if I remember correctly. And I just I even tried going to them. I was begging them. I was like, I will pay whatever it takes to get someone back in to do me real quick. And they just unfortunately couldn't make it happen. But I've had a lot of great reviews since then on them, and I just kind of wish I would have done a little more research on that and just gone with them instead. But I made it work with my Sephora look, and I made my hair work too. And I mean, even from the pictures, you can't really tell that I had any issues, which is very impressive. It was a big old pat on the back to myself because I was like, whew, I did it. And then we went back to the hotel after the shoot, took a 3-hour nap, woke up to a few sneak peeks, and that was great. So it all worked out in the end. But I think my two biggest tips is just make sure you do your research on hair and makeup, because, you're going just for a shoot. That's something you don't really kind of stop to think about, because it's oh, I'm just getting pictures taken. It's not a big event, when really it kind of was. I was still in my dress. We still paid, a good amount of money for these pictures. And that was something I should have, I guess, just kind of put more thought into. And then, of course, just always pack your makeup, even if you think you absolutely do not need it.
Yeah, and I would add that if you are looking for a makeup artist on either coast, there are lots of Facebook groups dedicated to weddings at Walt Disney World, and they all have either approved hair and makeup vendors, or it's a great place to get a recommendation of who people used. And then there's a group called Weddings at Disneyland on Facebook that also, same thing, that would be a great place to go to get recommendations for makeup artists who people have used at Disneyland weddings and enjoyed working with.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I'm definitely part of, a couple different groups, the two big ones that you mentioned. And yeah, I think I kind of went into it thinking, oh, I'm just getting pictures taken. And it just, the bigger picture just completely went over my head, I think.
But otherwise, it sounds like you ended up with some great photos.
Yes, yeah, we definitely did.
Well, Hayley, this has been super helpful. I really appreciate your coming on the show today to share your experience. And I think it's going to be very helpful for anyone who's interested in taking portraits on both coasts. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really fun to kind of share everything that happened.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.